Look, I really wanted to write this show thanking and celebrating the women that made me the woman that I am today. I also really wanted to write a show about rejection, showing the world that I'm not ashamed of my rejection. Because if I learned anything, is that in traditional femininity, if you want something, you're meant to sit there and wait for that thing, for someone to come to you and propose to you. But in hoe culture, you go out there and you get the things that you want. And in traditional femininity, if you get rejected, you're meant to think of it as a defeat. You're meant to internalize it and feel ashamed of it and self-pity and sit there in silence and think of it as your own failure as a woman. But in hoe culture, you can't shame me if I'm not ashamed. The women of hoe culture aren't ashamed of their rejections. They take their rejections and they make beautiful art out of their rejections. When men get rejected, they start World War II or Facebook. When Alanis Morissette got broken up with, she did not text her ex-boyfriend, "Is she perverted like me? Would she go down on you in a theater?" She took these thoughts and she put them to music, and she wrote You Oughta Know, the greatest song of our time. And now people are singing You Oughta Know in karaoke bars all over the world. And no relationship anyone could have ever offered Alanis Morissette would ever come close to the euphoria of hearing You Oughta Know for the very first time. And this show is my You Oughta Know. Because I don't make comedy for comedy fans. I make comedy for 18-year-old girls who got left on red and think the world is ending. And I don't know if you guys know this, but You Oughta Know was written about Dave Coulier, who's a stand-up comedian most well known for dating one of the coolest chicks in show business. So Sam, we're halfway there. So Sam, you ask me if it's okay if this tastes platonic. I ask you if it's okay if this show is iconic!
I was watching Notting Hill a couple of nights ago, and when Hugh Grant turns Julia Roberts down and his friends all roast him for it, I was like, what the fuck have I done?
Psych! Psych, 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 psych! Sorry, I can't write a show about rejection if I've never been rejected. I can't relate. Hello! He changed his mind because he watched Notting Hill. I'm Julia Roberts, bitch! Thank God Netflix had the rights to Notting Hill. It could have been Gone Girl. I would have been dead. Look, it brings me absolutely no pleasure to tell you that I do not live by the message of my own show. It brings me absolutely no pleasure to tell you that Sam and I are in love and he's my little baby. Oh, I hate this part of the show. It makes me sick. I hate this part of the show because men stop laughing because they think I won't fuck them. Oh, God, he's my little baby. I hate it. The thing that is the most annoying is that changing your mind because you watched a Richard Curtis film is hoe culture! Don't you hate it when you desperately want to have a threesome and you fall deeply in love instead? Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? Kind of love him so much. He's my little baby. We went running the other day and he was like, "Do you want to see how fast I can run?" Mama. I love him so much. We were playing 20 questions the other day and I gave him Mariah Carey and he couldn't get Mariah Carey in 20 questions and I was like, "It's Mariah Carey." And he was like, "Who, the Christmas lady?" I also just think that maybe like a bisexual man and a bisexual woman in a relationship is maybe the bravest thing you can do. Because you're very boldly and very openly looking at each other and you're saying, "I could have been interesting, but instead I chose you." And who knows, maybe one day I'll get on one knee and I'll hand him an ice cold milkshake. And I'll say, "Wouldn't it be tight if we spent the rest of our lives together? Some homo." And he'd stand there and through the tears he'd be like, "Is this the only way I can get an agent?" Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming out. You're incredible. Truly, what a ride. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't want to waste much more of your time. I'm just going to end on one short anecdote. I love going to parties. I love going to parties. I love talking to strangers. I love asking strangers the big questions. Questions like, in the movie Freaky Friday, would you rather fuck Jamie Lee Curtis with Lindsay Lohan brain or Lindsay Lohan with Jamie Lee Curtis brain? That's to say, would you rather fuck a child's mind or a child's body? Starts a very interesting conversation about consent. I especially love going to parties with my best friend Philip of liver failure fame. Gay Phil and bi Olga love going to a party, love approaching a group of straight men, like an Imagine Dragons of straight men, right? And asking them the only question that a bi woman and a gay man want to ask a group of straight men. And that question is, of course, if you had to have gay sex, if you had to have gay sex, if you had to have gay sex, if your life depended on it, would you be a top or a bottom? And what happens every time is that all the straight boys start running around and saying, I'd be a top, I'd be a fucking top, because I'm a dick and I fuck with it, I'd be a fucking top. That's exactly what happened at this party. Apart from one man. And that man's name was Sebastian. Sebastian looked at all these other boys and he said, I would be a bottom. And all the other boys went, you're fucking gay! And he laughed. Oh, how he laughed. And he looked at them and he said, I'd be a bottom because I wouldn't be able to get hard for a man. He outmasked all of them. That night, I saw a man grow a cowboy hat. And that's yeehaw culture.